Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your delusional hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. I will start us off today by joining two travelers in their journey through a post-apocalyptic landscape, trying to uncover the mysteries behind their origin and fate in Heavenly Delusion. After that, John and I will once again return to our beloved band of wacky gold diggers and discuss the fourth season of one of our personal favorites, Golden Kamuy. Sounds like a heavenly time, so holster your AA battery-powered laser gun, harness your personal beefcake pussy monster, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. They try to hit you. They try to kick you down and out. 15 years ago, disaster struck human civilization, and now dangerous man-eating monsters roam the ravaged lands, posing an existential threat to the remaining survivors. Amid this turmoil, an isolated facility shelters children and nurtures them in peace. However, as a few among them find out about the world beyond the narrow periphery of their nursery walls, their curiosity about it slowly grows. Meanwhile, in the outside world, young survivors Maru and Kiriko band together to search for a special place called Heaven, each for their own reasons. Carrying past burdens and tragic secrets, the two hope to find answers to the cruelty they have experienced in their lives and in the world, which still remains in tatters. As these very different stories and characters are about to converge, a truth about their existence will be revealed that might shake them and the pillars of this world to their core. So yeah, Heavenly Delusion is based on a manga that started in January 2018, currently lists 9 volumes and a couple of chapters, and is still running. It was written by Masakazu Ishiguro, who also created the manga And Yet the Town Moves, and worked on the story and art for a bunch of other manga, none of which I think I've heard of before, which doesn't really say anything, because I'm illiterate. But I was just surprised to see 13 different manga in his credit, which is rare to see in itself, but also not any of the titles ringing a bell was weird to me. But then again, I've never heard of Heavenly Delusion before this anime adaptation, so I guess I need to step up my manga game. But speaking of the anime adaptation, though, the first season counts 13 episodes and was handled by Production IG, which we have mentioned several times on this show over the years. Probably mostly when I talked about Haikyuu, but they also did Psycho-Pass, helped on Attack on Titan, and worked on a bunch of other stuff. And as expected, if you are familiar with their portfolio, Heavenly Delusion is a drop-dead gorgeous show. Amazing environmental art, Last of Us vibes, with abandoned, damaged cities, with lush greenery and overgrown houses instead of a desert wasteland. Show has a great OP, detailed character animation with very expressive faces. It's all very pretty. The fantastic facial animation also really benefits the comedy in the show, which there was more of than I expected. Heads up, I will spoil what happens in the first 3 episodes, because otherwise I can't talk about some of the most interesting aspects of the show, so be aware of that, though I will give you a final warning before we get to the heavy stuff. So yeah, the setup of this is, or the first stuff, some of the first stuff we see in the show are 2 of our main characters. Kiriko, who is supposed to be 20, but maybe really 18, and Maru, who is 15. And they're traveling this post-apocalyptic world. Kiriko is this odd-job girl with a laser pistol that is tasked to protect Maru and deliver him to a certain place. She's also looking for a specific person she wants to meet from her past. And on the other hand, we have Maru, who is supposed to meet a certain person at the place they're trying to get to, called Heaven, that is supposed to look like him. But yeah, I don't think they ever really say what led to the collapse of society in this world as we know it. Definitely some kind of calamity or great disaster. But in fact, nobody in the world of the show seems to know what exactly happened. There are some theories that actually get named after what kind of stuff happened apparently in the calamity. But there's nothing definitive. There's no clear answer yet, as of this first season, what exactly happened that turned this world upside down. Kiriko is Maru's bodyguard, so she has to be able to fight, and for that she has the aforementioned laser pistol, which is battery powered by a battery that kind of looks like a big AA battery. It's kind of weird. I was like, okay, well, I expected this to be more futuristic, but okay, I guess this is it. It also actually has to be charged in a normal charging station that you would see around these days. So yeah, it's weird. And if it's fully charged, it has 4 shots. And Kiriko only has 1 or 2 rechargeable batteries at her disposal, so their ammunition is very limited.
How long does it take to charge?
A while. And there's not always like electricity around, so hard to come by, and she has to make her shots count. But Kiriko is not the only one who can do some damage. Maru is a good hand-to-hand combat fighter. He's also very sympathetic, albeit a bit horny at times, but he's 15, what can you do? Kiriko, on the other hand, is very clever and feisty. She wears a cool Air Force jacket. Terry Bogard vibe there.
Hey.
I like them both a lot. And as a duo, they're great and often funny as hell. Like, they're match made in heaven in terms of their dynamic and their back and forth and banter and everything. It's great. As also mentioned in the intros, there are monsters in this world called man-eaters or hiruko. Like roaming outside, it can happen upon an unsuspecting victim at any place, at any time, really. And the first confrontation with such a man-eater in the show, which happens in the second episode, or end of the first episode, I'm not quite sure, is very well animated and surprisingly gruesome. Like, this is at times a very violent and bloody show. And this fight definitely demonstrates that. Meanwhile, there seems to be a school in a closed-off area whose pupils don't know about the outside world, really. Like, they get some glimpses here and there. There's this girl who looks a lot like Maru, so she seems to be the target of his particular mission. There's a girl called Mimihime, who already seems to know a bit about the outside, or what they call the real outside. But the headmaster of the school doesn't want to talk about the outside world because she says that the outside world is hell and the kids need to stay inside to be safe. So there are these 2 mostly separate story parts happening in the first season. Kiriko and Maru trying to get to this place called Heaven, which might or might not be where the kids are of the second story path, and the kids in the school trying to find out about the outside world and some weird stuff that is going on in the school. And these 2 storylines are kept mostly separate for this first season. And the storyline with Maru and Kiriko is pretty straightforward. It's a road movie thing. They're trying to get from point A to point B. We see them traversing various parts, overcoming various obstacles in the destroyed world, which we learn about through their adventures and how it works. They battle a couple of man-eaters, all looking very weird and very different, each exhibiting a very unique and deadly ability that they have to face and try to overcome and to figure out. So, a bit of JoJo's, like, how do we actually beat this thing going on here. And we see them interact with other people, which also teaches us about how society works in this post-apocalypse, which is very interesting. Because it's not like the outside world is devoid of humans. There are still smaller communes and villages. There are also cities that still kind of work. In the second episode, they end up on a farm that definitely is growing some grade A marijuana, which actually saves them from a fish monster man-eater in one of the episodes. That's gonna be a first. But yeah, the decay of the world is ever present. Buildings in the cities are regularly crumbling or falling over, which is a danger in itself to the population that still resides there. But it's all a very interesting scenario, and I didn't expect them to actually meet so many people and travel to so many different places in the world. So it's a very versatile, visually versatile, and also from a storytelling perspective, part of this story, while it's still just kind of being this road movie thing with these 2 characters who try to get from point A to point B, which is very cool. I always like this kind of stuff in stories, if it has a couple of strong characters that you can hang that on, and this show does it, because Maru and Kiriko are great. What immediately caught my attention about this show was the fact that this, despite its humorous antics and weird sci-fi and fantasy vibes, is a surprisingly mature and open show. you have two girls kissing on screen in the second episode, which is a rarity in itself. And also in the same episode, Kiriko, after Maru tries to kiss her, confesses to him to be trans, I guess. So she has a woman's body, but she identifies as a man. I don't think I've seen an anime that has so outwardly stated something like this before, especially not with a comedic undertone or, I don't know, something else going on. And one of the main characters to boot. But there's a twist to the whole thing. And this is where we get into heavy spoilers for the first 3 episodes. So if you don't want to know anything, maybe skip to the next review and watch the show instead. All right, so the backstory of Kiriko is that she grew up in an orphanage, was a kart racer, and had a brother called Haruki. And that was in Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. So Haruki, her brother, looks up to the leader of the orphanage called Robin. And Robin is kind of a role model to him. And he wants to kind of be like him, be this leader, wants to help him out. And then, as might happen in this world, Haruki gets almost devoured by a man-eater. And to save him, his sister Kiriko ostensibly convinced a doctor who was into some kind of fucked up experiments to put her brother's brain into her body. So it's a bit of a cheat in terms of being more of a trans allegory than a real trans story, I guess, but it's still cool. Also, Maru's reaction is pretty sympathetic to the whole thing, and the dialogue writing in the show is very snappy and funny. So is the editing. And it all works in favor, because otherwise this kind of story beat and story aspect could, if mishandled, could have gone really wrong and could have really soured me on the show. But I felt like it was handled really well, and they even in later parts of the season, they dive even deeper, especially when it comes to Haruki/Kiriko, or Kiriko as they later identify, trying to figure out who they are, what they feel they are now that they are in Kiriko's body, but technically still have the brain of Haruki. Do they actually feel like a woman? Are they more of a man? Are there something in between? So gender fluid. And the show actually doesn't shy away from trying to make that character figure that out and trying to ponder the different options. And that's really interesting, and I like that about the show a lot. And it tried to handle that with a kind of grace, I guess. Of course, there are some comedic moments here and there that kind of relate to that, but it never feels like it tried to make it like the butt of the joke or anything, which a lot of other shows sadly do. Like trans characters or, I don't know, sometimes gay characters or whatever are, you know, often used as comedic aspects in anime, and at worst, in the worst cases, as like this predatory stereotype because they're different and weird. Especially to gay people, this happens a lot. Like, I'm sad to report that One Piece has those as well, in a way, with a lot of Okama people. I mean, representation is good, but sometimes this stuff is just being mishandled very badly in anime. Sometimes it isn't. There are some good examples for that also working, but really trying to get into the thick of it and trying to discuss it, I don't think I've seen much of that in anime. And this show actually tries to attempt that, tries to figure out the characters' feelings about this whole thing, tries to actually accompany them on their journey of trying to figure this out. It is an unusual situation. Granted, it's still an allegory, it's still different, because it's not like someone who was born into the wrong body. Haruki was actually a man before and identified as a man, felt like a man, and then was forcefully put into a woman's body, which is still which is a much different story, like at least on paper. But you know, it's kind of there, and it's an interesting way to trying to tell this kind of story. If maybe, I don't know, certain production committees, though that doesn't apply to the manga, but maybe to the anime, have a problem of discussing something like this openly with an actual trans character. I don't know, but this is very interesting, and that was an aspect I liked about this show. Yeah, and the scene where Haruki is half devoured by the man-eater is horrifying, and it is kind of heavily implied that his sister intentionally shot and mortally wounded herself to force the doctor's hands. The show also does a really good job of conveying the shock Haruki experiences when he wakes up in his sister's body. So I like that. I like the progression on that because it doesn't shy away from this being a horrifying experience. But once by the time we kind of meet Kiriko / Haruki / Kiriko, they kind of seem to be over it. They still haven't figured themselves out completely, but they seem to be at least somewhat okay with being in this new body. They're just trying to find the person that is responsible for this, which is the doctor, and trying to reconnect with Robin, who might also have some answers to what actually happened on that day, because they don't know, they are not sure. And we are not exactly sure either. We can make our guesses, we can make assumptions, but we don't see the whole truth. This is one of the bigger mysteries of Kiriko's and Maru's side of the story. And I really like Kiriko and Maru's relationship. They really care about each other a lot, and more than they realize. There's this great scene where Kiriko returns home and Maru isn't there. So Kiriko freaks out for a moment. Thankfully, Maru was only next door where he found some porn mags and apparently was in the process of finding some relief. But there's also something good about the show. In a lot of anime, this would have been a setup of Kiriko just punching Maru and calling him a perv, because as we all know, that's hilarious. It never is. But here, Kiriko is pretty nonchalant about it and just relieved that Maru is okay. Like I said, the show feels pretty grown up and diffuses a lot of its tropey setups by being realistic about it having its characters handling it in a low-key way. I really appreciated that, because this could have gone a completely different way and could have soured me on the show. And it's still funny, probably even more since the show is dealing with the scene so earnestly. So yeah, it's a refreshing difference in tone from a lot of other shows when it comes to these kind of jokes. Don't get me wrong, there are also some funny misunderstanding scenes, but they're so over the top that even I had to laugh. The humor in the show is really well balanced. There's this one episode where the two fight a bear, thinking it's a man-eater monster, but when Maru tries to perform his finishing move that he can use on the man-eaters, freshly coined Fatal Dive on it, which of course doesn't work. And all the scenes that result from that moment alone are hilarious. He's super embarrassed that it doesn't work, and also that he gave it that stupid name. It's just great. But also mixed with that are some good emotional beats and a kick-ass action showdown with the bear. It's all done really well and well balanced and entertaining as all heck. So yeah, the show does that a lot, and that's not an easy thing to do. So I thought that was really great. It's also a surprisingly horny show at times. Much more naked skin and off-screen fucking than I expected from a show with this kind of story setup. So yeah, that is also in there. Didn't expect that, but also didn't mind it. There are some really good emotional side stories. There's one where Kiriko and Maru try to help out a doctor and his patient, and that is a gut-wrenching tearjerker. Holy shit. So that is in there too. Some good drama. I like pretty much all of what I saw of Kiriko's and Maru's story in this. I thought it was great. It was fast-paced. It was entertaining. We meet a lot of interesting characters. We have a lot of interesting story beats. We learn a lot about this interesting world. Have a lot of kick-ass battles against man-eaters and bears. And it's all really cool. And of course, sprinkled in there is the mystery of Kiriko trying to find out what happened to her in the past, Maru trying to find the person that he's searching for, and also us trying to figure out what's up with Maru, because, you know, he's like this super gifted hand-to-hand combat dude, 15 years old, and can for some reason kill man-eaters, which no other person in this world apparently can do. So there's something up with him. But yeah, we don't know. So that's one of the interesting things. And yeah, that really made me enjoy this part of the story pretty much from beginning to end. But sadly, this is where I have to issue a trigger warning, because there's a scene with a sexual assault in the penultimate episode.
Oh boy.
It's not super explicit, but if that subject matter is too much for you to handle, maybe skip the last couple of minutes of that particular episode. It's evident enough what happened from the following episode, so you don't need to see the actual scene to put 2 and 2 together. As for why it's in there, I guess I kind of get it, but in my opinion, they could have done that several better ways without relying on something as revolting. If you wanted to out a certain person as a shitbag, there are equally effective ways to do that. Just saying. And you don't have to be slavenly adapting the manga. There are, like I said, other ways to do that. And I don't think anyone would have complained if they changed that particular part of the story or took it out completely in favor of just having a certain character do something else to come across as an asshole. Maybe there was a specific intent behind it, and like I said, I can kind of see it because it also relates to Haruki's / Kiriko's sexuality, but still, it's kind of a downer because up to that point, I really I loved the show, like straightforward loved, and this kind of put a negative note on it because, like I said, I felt like it wasn't super necessary. We could have done this a different way, so that's a bit of a bummer. As you might have noticed, I haven't talked much about the second story path with the closed off school yet, and there's a specific reason for that. While the storyline of Maru and Kiriko has its share of mysteries, most of it is very straightforward. The school part, on the other hand, is pretty much all mystery. So I can't really talk about it without giving too much of the things away that make it the other interesting component of this show. Let's just say in the beginning I wasn't sure with that part of the story what it was trying to do, where it was trying to go. It felt like a bit meandering, like we meet a lot of kids in the school. We don't know what's up with them. You know, they behave like kids in a walled-off school society who have no connection to the outside world would behave. They seem to be pretty naive in a lot of ways. They don't know what is going on with them, hitting puberty and everything. Like, There's a lot of interesting parts moving there. There's a lot of weird things happening. I was pretty sure that one girl, Tokyo, is supposed to be in the person with the same face as Maru's, that he is supposed to inject with a needle for a yet unknown reason. That's all we know about this. Also, one of the students, Kona, is drawing man-eaters he probably shouldn't know about. Like in the first episode, he draws a weird man-eater fish with human arms, and at the end of the third episode, Kiriko and Maru encounter that specific man-eater in the outside world. He also draws something like a test tube baby, which also carries, as much as a baby can, a bit of a resemblance to a certain character or characters in the story. There's also some kind of illness going around. A kid in the school has it, and the woman who took care of Maru before Kiriko died from it has it as well. On my first watch, it all felt very vague and hard to pin down and mysterious and obtuse in a way. But by the last third of the season, I was pretty sure I had figured out one of the biggest, if not the biggest twists of the show, which relates to this specific story path. And taking a closer look at earlier episodes confirmed it. It's even easier to see it coming if you pay attention to certain details early on, but it took me until the last couple of episodes until it clicked, because if you don't know what you have to pay attention to, the crucial hints are small blink and you miss it moments. I mean, there's some big obvious hints at what's going on dropped throughout all of this season as well, but those that I picked up on could be interpreted in several ways. Regardless, for me it was quite the gut punch when the other shoe finally dropped, and I wonder how much longer they will dwell on certain parts of the story in the second season before they put it all out in the open. But I also like that. I thought by the end, once I finally got a grip on where that part of the story was going, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. Oh, that's super interesting. And also, fuck! Oh no! That is horrible, but also really good. So, eventually, I liked both parts of this story so far a lot, with that small caveat of that one thing that really didn't need to be in there, in my opinion, in Maru's and Kiriko's story. But yeah, speaking of the second season, that hasn't been confirmed yet, but I hope it will soon. However, the manga is still running, and the first season covers a hefty amount of chapters, so the manga currently has 57 chapters, and the first season of the anime covered about 33 and a half chapters. So we might have to wait a bit until there is enough material for a full second season. We'll see. But yeah, if you want to check out the first season of Heavenly Delusion, you can watch it on Disney+. But you might have to search for the Japanese title, Tengoku Daimakyo, because for some reason, the last time I checked, I wasn't able to find the show through its English name. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they changed that. Maybe they, I don't know, worked on their tag system or whatever. But the last time I searched for Heavenly Delusion on Disney+, I didn't find it. I searched for Tengoku Daimakyo, and suddenly, there it was. So someone fucked up something.
Good job, Mouse. You did it once again.
That's not the only thing they fucked up, though. So, I mean, they're also bad with subtitles. At least they were on Star Wars Visions, because they only had closed caption stuff for a fucking anime. Anyway, I liked the first season a lot. Wished what happened in the final 2 episodes didn't happen, because it feels unnecessary and was just put in there for cheap shocks. But aside from that, this is a gorgeous show with great characters, fun dialogue, thrilling action scenes, a wicked sense of humor, and an engaging mystery. If you think you can deal with what happens in its final stretch, I recommend you check it out, and I hope the next season will be able to deliver the same many positive beats without the negative one. If it does, this might become an all-time heavenly favorite of mine.
So, after all that, it's time to go back to Russia, and then back out of Russia to Japan. Because it's the 4th season of Golden Kamuy. I think it's worth noting, and we talked about it briefly, that the show changed studios from Geno Studio to Brainspace, I believe.
Yeah.
And
which is probably the reason why Brainspace didn't do the second season of To Your Eternity.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know what Geno Studio has been doing instead, though.
I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked up. But, it's kind of sad to see, to me anyway, that, they took this show and they made it theirs. And, the first season was obviously rough, but then as it went on, it definitely got way better and better. But, if you had told me if you didn't tell me, or I didn't know enough to look up that it had switched studios, I don't know about you, man. I don't think I would have been able to tell, because they're nailing the same style. Yeah,
Brainspace pretty much got it down, what Geno Studio was doing. The animation quality is pretty much on par with what we got from Geno, in my opinion. But there were some production troubles, right? I mean, we had a break in the season.
There was someone on the staff, and I don't think it was ever publicly mentioned who, and I haven't been able to dig up, and if that's not public information, that's fine. But some staffer passed away during the production of the show, and they delayed it starting from, I think it was November. And then they didn't start running the show again until April, when they started it from the first episode of this season, which, kind of gave me a reason to go back and rewatch the episodes. Otherwise, I don't think I would have remembered what had happened, because it was I think it was at episode 6 where they stopped. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So, and then they came back and they ran the episodes that are already gone, and then the rest. And I don't know if they ever said who it was that passed. I didn't catch it,
no. Maybe the family didn't want to make a big thing about it.
Yeah, the announcement noted the main staff member who passed away was indispensable to the production, and that was the beginning, middle, and end of who it was. They never actually named it publicly. Maybe on some Japanese news sites, but I feel like that probably would have disseminated out by now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure probably for some reason the family didn't want that to be public knowledge in any way, or have someone...
And that's fair.
Yeah. If it was it's always a private matter. So if they don't intend to not reveal it, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're not privy to that information.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, it's sad, but it's fine that we don't know. Right. But yeah, I don't feel like, aside from the show taking a break for kind of a season, I feel like this didn't affect the production in a big way, quality-wise. Like, the rest of the episodes looks just as good as the first couple of episodes from this season.
It didn't seem like it. Nothing that I was able to look at and be like, oh God, that looks nothing, not like that.
I mean, if anything, it probably gave them a bit more time to work on latter half of the season.
That's true.
If they didn't also have to work on something else at the same time, but who knows? But yeah, quality-wise, I have nothing to complain in the season. I think it looks great, even though there was a studio change, and that's the best you can hope for, I guess. Right? That there's not a drop-off in quality like certain other shows. And that's cool. And I'm glad that if something like this had to happen to Golden Kamuy for some reason, like I said, I don't know what Gino is doing instead, then I'm glad that the effects of that were not noticeable. So, good stuff. Not in the animation quality, not in the direction. I don't know if they kept anything of the anyone from the old staff. Didn't look. I
know the director stayed.
Yeah, that shows.
I think most of all of the writers stayed.
Yeah, that's the important part. So they kept the important people, and animation wise, they got enough good personnel on Brainspace who were able to adapt to the style that the show used before. So great, can't complain. That's good stuff. And I feel like, do we need a small recap of what happened in the third season? I don't think so. People can listen to our old review. I mean, this is a full spoiler review, obviously, because we're already into the fourth season of this, and we reviewed all the other previous seasons. So if you want a spoiler-free thing, you gotta go back to our first review of this, like of the first season.
Or you can go watch it yourself, because it's a pretty good show.
That's probably the better way to do this. Not that I want to drive people away from our old episodes or anything, but, watch the anime instead, guys, because you don't want to spoil that shit. It's a wild ride, and you should just basically go in not knowing anything about this. Just know that it's good and that we love it. And that hasn't changed with this fourth season, in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about it, John, overall, but I think this was just as strong a season as the previous ones.
Yeah, man. We're getting closer and closer to the big climax, so...
Yeah, very close.
It is going to get understandably crazier, and it's been a ride ever since the beginning. I think we were both sort of like, oh, this is pretty good, but then as we get deeper and deeper in, it's like, oh no, this is crazy. This is really good. It's a great story with. There's so many moving parts and characters, which makes it kind of tough to summarize certain aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to in the coming minutes, but you're right. I mean, Golden Kamuy always had a really big cast, and there's some additions this season as well, but also a lot of familiar faces, and a lot of those have already been established now, and we learned some new stuff about already established characters, and see some new perspectives, which also happened in the previous seasons, which is always cool, learning more about the characters that we're already familiar with. So that's neat. What kind of stuck out to me, and I'm jumping the gun here a bit, is the second and third season. The second and the third season ended on kind of a big action climax. This one doesn't really. It is still a good cliffhanger because there are enough open threads and everything, but it's not like there's this really big build up towards the end of this season. It feels a bit like of a middle in between season, and in the next one we're gonna get the big finale from it. And there's enough action in here and enough exciting moments, but I feel like it was more of an even-paced show than the previous ones. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, because you're absolutely right. We had a couple or three big action set pieces throughout this season. So I feel like the fact that we didn't end on one is fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have enough to look forward to and enough to chew on before that point.
Absolutely. I wasn't really mentioning that as a negative. It was just something that jumped out at me because the two previous seasons were different. This feels more like the first season in regards to what it's doing, introducing us to a lot of characters or new perspectives on already established characters, and then ending on a kind of promise to what is going to happen in the next season, but not being like this closed off climax in itself, which is what season 2 and 3 did too, with the big prison escape, and season 3 also with a bit of a prison escape, but the very different one. Also a tiger was involved, and also like this kick-ass fight on the ice between Kyoranke and Koito and Tanigaki, and also between Sirpa and Ogata and Sugimoto. And that was kind of a very personal fight, while the second season's ending was more of a big blowout with a lot of moving parts and a lot of exciting thrills here and there, and twists and turns. And the ending of season 3 felt more like a focused, small scale personal fight. So also very cool.
I still love the end of season 3, where Sugimoto was like, "Hey, Ogata, you go and heal up and get better so I can kill you myself." It's like, whoa!
Yeah. Amazing.
So good.
Yes. It's really good. Also, where Tanigaki fights Kyoranke and has the knife that Kyoranke stabbed Tanigaki's love interest Inkarmat with. And then it has like his most kick-ass line in the show, probably, where he says like, "You forgot something at Abashiri prison. I came to bring it back to you," and then just fucking stabs him with the knife.
Let's go! It's so good.
It's really good. Like, yeah. And we have some cool stuff with Tanigaki in this too. So in this season. So yeah, let's start. First episode already starts with a literal bang, where when a Russian sniper we've met before, I think, shoots Shiraishi and lays siege to the gang because he thinks Ogata is still with them. What it was, Vasily or Vladimir? I don't know what his name turned out to be, the Russian sniper. I think it was Vasily. They mentioned that later on. But yeah.
Vasily Pavlichenko, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And aside from the cool action and everything, and of course they managed to solve that issue, but the first episode already had several laugh out loud moments. Like, I think I mentioned this in the sneak peek, but it bears repeating. Tsukishima getting yelled at by Koito for not having a beauty mirror in his equipment bag.
Jesus Christ.
Shiraishi getting shot and trying to lure dogs and crows for cover, failing miserably. And Sugimoto's horrible drawing skills when he tries to explain the whole situation to Vasily. Top tier entertainment, as usual. And it continues like that, because in the coming episodes, we, again, which Golden Kamuy often does, shift the focus to different characters, to side characters that are not necessarily involved with Sugimoto and his group. Go back to the Tsurumi soldiers that are not with the rest of the gang. We also meet the pussy monster again.
Freaking Ushiyama, God.
Who doesn't abide bullies.
No.
Let's just make that clear. I also cast hereby heavy doubt on the origin story of the first Japanese figure skater.
It's fine, don't worry about it.
But it's in there if you wanted to know about the first Japanese figure skater according to the writer of Golden Kamuy. Here it is. And it's glorious. And, you know, we get to see a bit more of characters we have not seen that much of before, like the ex-warden of the prison, Karukura, who had to look at a guy's asshole for nothing. Shit happens, I guess. He's one of my favorite new characters, I gotta say. Like him together with...
is it Kirous?
Yeah, Kirous. Great team up. I love them. I thought they were great. Like they're like a weird buddy cop couple, and I kind of give each other shit all the time.
I love that Kirous hones in on the whole looking up someone's butthole thing. Yeah, just keeps throwing that at Kadokura. Kadokura's like, man, shut up, get out of here.
Yeah. He's calling him an asshole peeker all the time. It's great. And Kadokura says he has bad luck, but he is actually the luckiest motherfucker on the planet. Just by pure chance takes the two poisons that neutralize each other. So, don't tell me you're a guy with a bad luck, man. Like, he's not the brightest self-declared detective around, but he's fun.
Man,
I like his shit.
That whole incident with Sekia and his poisons was, man, freaking Jesus.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, it's cool that they pit, especially those three characters against each other. Kadokura, Sekia, and Hijikata. Like, three men with completely different attitudes towards fate or luck and God. Like, Kadokura believes in bad luck. Sekia wants to find out if the bad shit that happened to him was coincidence or the will of God. And Hijikata is so calculating that he doesn't leave anything up to chance. So that's really neat. Like, putting these three characters, like, in this situation with being poisoned and everything. And, Sekia, of course, being one of the ex-prisoners who has tattoos of the map to the gold on him and everything. So that's how they encounter him. We have a couple of more of those people in this season that we haven't met before. Really cool. Like, Sugimoto and team are barely in the second and third episode, and you don't even miss them because the other characters are so nutty, cool, and entertaining too. The third episode also has a tense battle in the dark between Surumi's soldiers and the blind guy we've met before.
Right, yeah.
It's also really cool. And yeah, weird humor as usual. Like, there's this really gross scene where Sugimoto feeds Shiraishi like a bird mother. That was hyper gross. But funny also.
Welcome to Golden Kamuy.
Welcome to Golden Kamuy, yes. And like I said, also a lot of interesting background on some of the already established characters. Like, we learn how Tsurumi saved Koito and why Koito became so infatuated with him. Koito's father, who we've met before at the end of season 2, where he was commanding that Navy ship that attacked the prison. Koito's father is pretty badass in his own right. That motorcycle chase was awesome and hilarious.
Super good.
After JoJo's Golden Kamuy is the top posing anime. Can't deny that. Like, Tsurumi just badass. It's great. And yeah, we also get, of course, some fun side stuff with our main characters. Like, Usurper turns out to be quite the director.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Like, hey, here is another weird thing. People bring movies into this. But even that silly episode, goddamn, serves a purpose in terms of character development. It shows how important it is for Usurper to keep the Ainu history and traditions alive for future generations. Like, we see her mother for the first time, which is really cool. We get some neat scenes highlighting how close Tanigaki and Shikapashi have grown. It's great character development stuff. And it ends on a really strong scene between Sugimoto and Usurper, where he finally is trying to convey to her that he wants to protect her from the burdens her father and Kiroranka have put on her shoulders. And especially, he wants to keep her from turning into a lost soul like he considers himself to be, that is damned due to having killed other people. So, really good stuff. And the way this episode starts, you don't expect that, because it's just a silly one-off thing about, hey, we're gonna make a movie that details some weird stories that have been passed down from generation to generation in the Ainu about dick jokes and everything. And it becomes so heartfelt by the end, and it's such a cool story beat and development for Sugimoto and Usurper, and I just loved it. I loved that episode. It was so good. And yeah, man.
It was really unexpected, but it was super, super good.
Yeah, and why is this show so full of that? Like, how does it manage to pull something like that out of its head in every goddamn season? It's still a mystery to me. Like, how effortlessly this show does this. Like, juggling all these different styles, all these different tones, and those almost never clashing, because it just works. Once you accept what Golden Kamuy is, and it's just like this weird roller coaster Western / Eastern story thing, it's just so much fun. And it feels like everything is doing what it's supposed to do. And
I feel like it works really well just because we have these individual character stories that are compartmentalized from one another, so they don't really feel like one has more precedence over the other. They're all just as important as one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, everyone gets enough development and everything. All the story beats get enough development. Some of it initially feels like it comes out of nowhere, but quickly you realize, no, this has a reason for being here. And there's a reason why they are going here now instead of focusing on this. And it doesn't feel like a waste. No episode in this feels like it was like superfluous or didn't belong here or showed us stuff that wasn't interesting about some characters. And it's just like, goddamn, what a... Every storyteller who watches this gotta become envious at some point, because it's like, how can you do this? Like, the twist-a-minute developments in the episode where Hijikata and Tsurumi are out-plotting each other are ridiculous. That's some 4D chess, but it's great. And also Tsurumi just being able to rattle off the name of every member of Ariko's family to threaten him and force him to become his double agent is a terrifying display of his ruthlessness. And great development for him, too. Like, every time we get reminded what kind of evil manipulator Tsurumi is, it's just terrifying. And you tend to forget because he's such a fun, over-the-top, jokey character. But when he gets serious and really maniacal, it's like, holy shit.
Well, I feel like, in particular, like, we see shadows of that throughout this. But there's definitely a part later on in this season where the mask comes off and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. And we finally might get a glimpse into his real motivation. I mean, we can guess, right? We saw his origin story in season 3. We saw that he lost family, which might or might not have meant something to him or not, right? Maybe. We can't be sure because we haven't figured out Tsurumi yet. Yeah. He says that he wants to get the gold to enable all the soldiers that fell, let's say, under him or in his command, or the people that are still in his command, to have a good life and being taken care of. But considering what he does and the way he manipulates people all around him all the time, you can't trust that sentiment. You can't trust what that man is saying. You notice that you get pulled in by his manipulation as a viewer. Like, you start to getting enamored with him every time he's on screen and start to believe the shit that he says, right, when he tries to care for Koito, when he tries to care for Tsukishima. And then you find out, no, this probably was, again, a play by him, a well-pulled-off play. But you can't trust this man. You just can't, even if you want to at some point. And some of the stuff he says seems maybe not as wrong-headed and maybe noble even to an extent. But he is a very dangerous character in so many aspects, and that is what makes him so enticing and such a great antagonist. And we have so many antagonists in this show, but he is definitely the head honcho here. Like, every time he is on screen, he has such a presence. And every time you think you have him figured out or you can let down your guard, he does something where you're like, holy fucking shit, that guy is probably a goddamn monster. And yeah, I'm so excited to see where they finally end with him and his character and where they're going to take him, which we'll probably hopefully see next season. But yeah, there's a really good emotional beats in this too. Like I said, the stuff with Sugimoto and Nasurpa in the movie episode. But also we get a tear-filled goodbye between Tanigaki and Shikapashi, who decides to stay behind with old man Henke and Inonoka, the girl he grew fond of. It's a really nice scene and a good bookend on the well-built relationship between this unlikely father-son or big brother-little brother duo. Because they had a lot of scenes together in the previous seasons. And for now anyway, their shared story is kind of over. And that was pretty sad, but also beautiful. And yeah, I also love that moment in the show. And maybe they'll see each other again once Shikapashi has become a true boner of a man, just like Tanigaki. We'll see.
I think Tanigaki left his rifle with him, so, you know.
Yeah, we'll see. Koito becomes even more infatuated with Tsurumi when he learns the truth about Tsurumi's goal from Tsukishima, which is weird, because it's like you think, oh, he's trying to He's trying to get behind how he was maybe manipulated by Tsurumi, and then he will turn on him. But once he finds out, he's like, oh, he's even smarter than I thought. I love him so much. And you're like, wait, what?
At this point, I mean, Koito, he's gone. He's whatever. But
you think that, but there's happening something at the end of the season where it's like, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. So they keep you guessing with that character.
The character I'm having trouble figuring out is Tsukishima.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that he's convinced, that he himself is convinced that one side is right and the other is wrong. Because he seems like he wants to serve under Tsurumi, but he is acutely aware of all the things that Tsurumi has done, both bad, terrible and good. So it's like there's a conflict there, and I wonder how they're going to resolve that.
Absolutely, I think it's Tsukishima is one of those characters who maybe have, let's say, looked away for too long to now feel like they have a chance to escape from this. Like, he has been in command of under Tsurumi's command for so long and has done so many despicable things for him that he doesn't feel like he has any other option to live his life than to continue serving him, because he's like, I'm doomed either way, so I just have to see this through, because the only thing I can trust on is that this man, despite his horrible methods, has a good goal in mind, or something worthwhile that is waiting at the end of this journey. And that is the thing he's like clinging to. That is the hope. Like, this is deep down, he hopes that he wasn't just helping a despicable piece of shit. And this all is in favor of a grander goal that will actually maybe help his comrades and stuff like that. It feels like Tsukishima is that kind of person. And we had semblances of this kind of torn, like, this kind of fronting from some of the soldier characters before. Like, Ogata probably, well, he's a bit different, but he also, when we learned that he killed his brother in season 3, which was kind of like the catalyst for how he became like the goddamn sociopath. I guess he was that before, but before that he was like, he seemed like he was trying to kill his brother to prove that he didn't feel about anything about killing soldiers, like to basically kill his own emotions or his feelings of regret for killing other people. It's like, if I kill my brother, I can prove that I just don't feel anything and I don't have to feel anything. And when he does that in that specific scene, you see on his face, if you interpret it the way I did, that wasn't the case. Like, he actually felt something for his brother, and he felt bad for killing him, and that drove him even further over the edge, because he's now rigged with guilt. Again, my interpretation doesn't have to be true, but it's like we have these kind of character traits echoing throughout the show, of characters trying to flee themselves into some kind of false reality to being able to cope with the reality they have either maneuvered themselves into or have been maneuvered into by other people, by either clinging to these people or by clinging to a false version of themselves. And Tsukimoto also does that in a way. And we learn about part of that and the origin of that in this season. We got to that. So, yeah, really interesting. Like you said, like, I'm still waiting, again, also on the final word when it comes to Tsukishima. He might still surprise us. Right now, he seems just to be so dedicated to Tsurumi because he doesn't see any other way of living anymore. But we'll see where this goes. And yeah, Shiraishi slapped some sense into Sugimoto for still treating Arserpa like the girl he met, ignoring her progress and autonomy, which was a pretty cool scene.
And then he pukes all over the place because he's drunk as a skunk. Good job, my dude.
Yeah. I mean, he's still the best comedic relief in this show in many aspects. Like,
I mean, it's amazing that it took you that to have that sort of clarity, but Yeah.
Rightfully suspecting that Tsurumi doesn't give a shit about the Ainu, Arserpa, Sugimoto, and Shiraishi then escape with the help of Vasily. So that was a neat scene, and I felt like this was a long time coming because they have been working together Tsurumi's, faction since the beginning of season 3, basically. At least Sugimoto has. So, like, at some point, something's gotta give, because Sugimoto deep down knows that Tsurumi is just using him, like he's using everyone around him, every person that he comes across, just to further his own goals. So, he knows that he doesn't give a shit about the Serpa, even if he says so. And, when they have that confrontation with Tsurumi, that is made evident from the way Tsurumi reacts, like you said, where the mask comes off in a way. Or that was part of it anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that they finally made this decision. They could have made it earlier, but it was overdue. So, yeah, that was cool. And the image of Shiraishi with an arrow sticking in his head is an all-time laugh-out-loud moment in this show. Just where a Serper fires a bunch of arrows and says they're poisoned. They are not, but he doesn't know it. And then we see everyone evading the arrows, and the next shot is a side shot of Shiraishi's face with an arrow just vertically sticking out of his head, and he's saying, "Am I gonna die now?" It's just, that man is a treasure. God damn, they don't need to search for gold anymore. They have it right in their midst.
Life with Shiraishi is not uninteresting.
No, not at all. And we finally see a glimpse of immortal Sugimoto again, like the Berserk version, after he is shot several times and still manages to make short work of Koito and Usami before that. So that was pretty badass. And yeah, Aserpa is ready to go to hell with Sugimoto. She says as much, not to him, I think, but to herself. Like, mind monologue or whatever. And then they travel back to Hokkaido, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, we get another prisoner story. Heita, I think is the guy called. For some reason, my mind wasn't going to split personality disorder with that person.
Yeah, that story.
The bear guy.
Yeah. That was like bordering on some like horror story stuff absolutely. There.
Yeah, that was. The show always played with some horror beats here and there, with a bunch of different genre beats, but this one definitely clearly horror. That twist kind of caught me off guard. It's really creepy shit, but the show still manages to make you feel sorry for the guy in a way, because you kind of see how he got where he got, but it's still horrifying. And yeah, really, really well staged too. Like, if you rewatch it, you immediately kind of could see it coming, but the show handles it cleverly enough that if you don't look for it, you might need to take a while to figure out what is going on with that person and, his family and everything. So that's cool. I like that episode a lot. Tanigaki stayed behind because I think Sugimoto, I don't know who told him, but he's like, if you go with us, you will be hunted. And also Inkarmat is in danger because they still have her as a hostage. And yeah, so to make sure that doesn't happen, Tanigaki stays behind, but also that brings him in a situation that he's pressured by Tsurumi into abducting a Serper, like going after Sugimoto again. Because, like we said, he has Inkarmat as a hostage who is pregnant with Tanigaki's child, as we learned this season. And yeah, that becomes also part of the story, like, of this season later. Like, we get a focus episode on Tanigaki and Inkarmat. But before that, suddenly Ogata is back with Hijikata's group out of nowhere. I wasn't sure if I missed anything. Like, we see glimpses of him. We also see glimpses of him in the OP and stuff like that. But suddenly we see him shooting at things, trying to improve his aim because he still hasn't recovered from losing his right eye. Oh, what a shame. But it's like, oh, okay, he's with Hijikata's group again for some reason. We did see him anywhere this season, and now he's just getting into the house and everyone is greeting him. Oh yeah, Ogata, you're back. And I was like, did I miss something? John, did I miss something?
No, he's just there. He's just there. Oh, let me work on my aim because my depth perception is off now. Hi, I'm back.
Yeah.
Yo, what up?
Yeah. If this was any other show, then Golden Kamuy, I might have complained about this. But in this show, it's like, yeah, sure.
It's like, of course he's there.
Yeah. Why wouldn't he be, right? He needs to be there, so he is there. It doesn't matter that we saw him arriving or it didn't make a big scene where he suddenly reveals himself. We knew that he was still alive, so that's fine. And I guess it made sense that he would rejoin with them because, he still has his own reason to go for the gold or whatever, I guess. Though for him, I don't think it's about the gold. It's about corrupting characters and stuff like that. At least that's what his main thing in the third season was like at the end of it. He wanted to bring Usurper down to his level and make her just as ruthless and corrupt and, as much of a sociopath and killer as he is. He didn't succeed. But he might still try again. And of course, we need to see the final confrontation between him and Sugimoto, and I hope we will get that. But yeah.
I can't. I'm looking forward to that, dude.
Yeah, me too. It better be epic. Do your best work, Brainspace, please. But we finally get Usami's backstory. The guy with the weird stick figure tattoos on the side of his mouth, which we now learned was to cover up two moles on the side of his mouth. Weird choice, which in my opinion, it draws more attention to that.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, dude, okay, sure.
But he's also super weirdo, and again, sociopath or psychopath, I might be either. So I guess it fits, whatever. But yeah, it's fucked up, like, just as expected, just like kind of everything. Everyone's history in Golden Kamuy is kind of super fucked up, but his is one of the most fucked up ones. Like, he's another example of the type of soldier Tsurumi has groomed into a dedicated killing machine only devoted to him. Very interesting flashback to a conversation Tsurumi had with his sensei in that one. There's this quote I wrote down. What draws out the drive to kill in soldiers isn't hatred for the enemy or fear of death or a difference in ideology or politics. It's love. Which is the realization that has henceforth driven Tsurumi's manipulation of his men and other people, as we've seen many times in this show. So it was nice to see the origin of that. But it's not bulletproof, which we see when Tanigaki, instead of going after Usurper, sneaks into the hospital where Inkamat is held hostage and frees her. Tsukishima tries to stop them, like a berserker. It was crazy. But
Tsukishima goes like full tilt.
Yeah, but Koito doesn't. And Ienaga actually helps them by temporary... I mean, she wasn't a soldier. She wasn't dedicated to Tsurumi or anything, but also... I expected her to go more for her own goals, but she actually helps them by temporarily drugging Tsukishima, which I never expected her to do. It also gets her killed. Also, Tsukishima is much more of a physical menace than I expected. Like you said, he's just, whoa. Almost overpowering Tanigaki, even while already drugged. That small stature packs a lot of punch and will.
Yeah, I was just saying, Tanigaki is not a small guy.
That's a shit brick house made of... That's a meat castle.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even... But, like, Tsukishima is just going at him, and he's almost bringing him down. It's crazy. Several times, actually. While still being under the influence. It was really impressive and terrifying. I did not expect him to be such a capable fighter. But yeah, cool scene. Really cool scene. Koito convinces Tsukishima to not kill Tanigaki and Inkamat and shows that he is still dedicated to find out the true goal of Tsurumi. So I guess we have a happy end for the freshly baked parents for now, at least. So that's cool. And it was nice that they're not completely, like, both Tsukishima and Koito not being completely lost yet, which might give me a bit of hope. Like, they're thoroughly enthralled by Tsurumi's machinations for their own reasons, but they still have, like, their own thoughts, and they're willing to go against his commands if it kind of is opposed to their own morals and everything. So that was good to see.
Which is good, but... when Tsurumi finds out, it probably won't be good news for them.
Probably not. I mean, that's the thing. You don't know how he will actually react to that. Has any of his dedicated soldiers openly betrayed him yet? And has he killed them for it? I don't remember.
I don't believe so, but...
I mean,
we gonna find out.
I mean, he pressures, like I said, he pressures one of them. Like, he gets really threatening to one of them who was a spy for Hijikata, or is a double agent, whatever. He becomes a double agent, I guess. But and threatens by killing his family or every family member and everything. So sure, he is probably gonna do that, and he's scary as fuck. But that also wasn't one of his closest people. Like, if Tsukushima went against him, I wonder if that would make a dent in Tsurumi's like facade. If he would really be shocked by that in a way, because his manipulations didn't like having a fully like binding effect on the soldier that was with him the longest and the closest to him. Then if that happens, that might kind of, I don't know, that might cause some harm. That might cause some damage on the conviction of a man such as Tsurumi. So I don't know. But it will be really interesting to find out if we get to, like, if that is what happens and he doesn't just get killed for one reason or another by another character. I wonder who could do that. I have the feeling maybe he and Hijikata are going to kill each other, but we'll see. Will be interesting. And yeah, another interesting bit. Was that a goddamn Stephen King's It reference in My Golden Kamuy? Like, the scene where that one kid drops a ball down a drain and Shiraishi appears out of the shadows like Pennywise.
Yeah.
And the bad guy in this episode is kind of a clown, I guess, so that fits. At least the teased bad guy. We haven't really fought him yet or fully encountered him yet, but he appears first time in that episode.
I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Satoru Noda, but maybe he's a fan of Stephen King. I don't know.
He's a general fan of Western movies and media. I think there are enough references in Golden Kamuy to stuff that there is a guy with a literal like movie projector in this season. So that can't be a coincidence. That can't be a goddamn coincidence. So whatever. There is, that was definitely, then I wasn't alone in my assessment of that scene. It was definitely a net reference, and I appreciated it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Noda cites JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and among his influences, hallmarks of his work include visual references to pop culture and narratives that juxtapose gag comedy against violent or dramatic moments. Checks out.
Yep, absolutely. That works. But yeah, good stuff. And we get to see some more of Kadokaro and Kirawus, which, like I mentioned, are my favorite new pairing. I just want them to have a spin-off detective show or something. Like, that would be super duper. Like, I would so watch that. I would get a kick out of that. We get a new prisoner who is heavily featured at the end of the Great OP by Ali, who goes all out on that. It's probably one of my favorite OPs at this point.
For a long while, I really liked Winding Road.
Yeah.
But then this OP hit. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'm like, dude, nah, it's got to go on repeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never say goodbye. That's it.
Never say goodbye. There's this moment where like you have like this small down-tempo part where it's basically almost only singing, and then it picks back up again, and it's with a really cool scene, with a really cool montage where Hijikata's killing a bunch of people and Ushiyama holding someone up, and it's flames everywhere, and it's really cool. So yeah, I like that OP. And yeah, the one of the prisoners that we meet first time in the season, Botaro the pirate, we come across him in the latter part where it's like this riverboat heist thing going on, which is super funny with this weird postal officer who is going postal on everyone.
He's just this old guy who doesn't seem to know what's going on, but there's a gun and he's got ammo. So
yeah, and he's shooting at everything. It's hilarious what results from that. But yeah, Botaro is an interesting new character, and him and Shiraishi are acquaintances apparently. So that's an interesting new dynamic. Like, he wants also, which everyone in this show kind of wants to create his own country and become its king, so he has a place to belong where he can't get kicked out or isolated from. But every kind of main antagonist in the show wants to use the gold to create their own country for one reason or another. Like Tsurumi to support his soldiers, ostensibly. This is what he says, but we don't believe him. Hijikata wants to basically create a country where the rules of the, I don't know, old periods, Edo period or Sengoku period or whatever count, like where he can belong. Everyone wants a place to belong. Botaro wants a place where he can belong. Wilk, like Asirpa's father, and Kiruranka wanted to create a country where Ainu and the outcasts from Russia could find a place to belong. So this is what everyone kind of seems to want to do with the gold, like create their own separate country where they can, which they can call home because they feel like they don't belong anywhere else. Which is also, you know, a lot of these people are outcasts resulting from war and everything, which of course is also an interesting statement and everything.
I was going to say, fits with the theming, considering like almost every character in the show is an outcast in some form or another.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool to see that. And, you know, another interesting character who has puts another interesting wrinkle on that. And yeah, we get a very important bit of backstory for Sugimoto. His family died of tuberculosis, and instead of running away, he faced his fear of dying by shouting, "I'm immortal," in its face, which is a cool scene. I mean, a lot of other components relate to his character too and how he became who he is now. But this is kind of the beginning of this. Just being defiant in the face of a maybe horrible fate and just being fearless or trying to be fearless, even though he is super afraid, which also is something we saw when we saw the scenes where he fought in the war, where he also was afraid to die. And we see that repeated in the first 2 seasons. I think also in the third season, there are some references to that and everything. So him saying "I'm immortal" is just basically trying to overcome his fear. It's not that he actually believes that, or he has to make himself believe that, because otherwise he would just stand still in terror, because he's just afraid to die, and he has been surrounded by death his entire life. And this is the way he can overcome that, which is super sad that he has to endure that, but it's also super badass that he's actually kind of able to pull this off through sheer will. He's just a cool character, man. He's a cool main character. You gotta love him. You gotta love that man. He's a badass. It's like so many other people in this show. But he is our main badass. So, yeah. It was nice to see this part of his backstory in this season. Really, really important scene. I mean, I would have maybe liked to even give that a bit more time, and maybe they spent a bit more time on that in the manga. But this was like, I don't even know. It wasn't even half an episode, right, that they spent on that scene. Maybe like a couple of minutes. Yeah,
it wasn't super long, but, you know, it definitely helped establish, you know, a part of him that we hadn't seen. So
yeah, I mean,
it wasn't without value.
No, not at all. Like, it was super valuable. And on its own, if we only had that scene to understand his background, it probably wouldn't have been enough. But with everything we learned about him in the previous seasons, like, it just fits perfectly into it is a perfectly fitting missing puzzle piece that we didn't have before of this character, and now it just fits neatly into what we in the picture of that we got from Sugimoto through the previous 3 seasons, and all the stuff we learned about him and his background there and what kind of character he is. So really good. Usami uses his secret technique of masturbation dowsing to find the Jack the Ripper copycat. That's what I've written down here.
I mean, when you say it like that, it's not wrong, but...
And then, John, to top it all off, they have a bullet-time jerk-off duel.
Jesus Christ,
and
Noda.
Kikuta gets cum shot off a horse during the ensuing chase.
Jesus
what
Christ.
A show!
Noda! Satoru Noda! What?
It is amazing. Like, that episode had me hooting and hollering all over the damn place. Like, I couldn't with this
show. And I was just like, watch it.
What is going on? Usami is such a fucking creep. It's amazing, but it fits so well for his character. It's like, no, this is how I can find him. This is how I can I can get myself. If I jerk off here, I can feel what he felt and guess where he went next.
Oh my God.
The thing is, in a weird way, this makes sense. In this show, in this frame with these weird characters, yeah, sure. I get it.
I guess it'll let you get inside the killer's head, but
Great episode. Just like, what a laugh riot. Like, I've never seen something like that in any other show. And it's great.
I love the episode summary on Wikipedia. Dodges all the way around that and says, in Sapporo, Usami uses an unconventional method. Yeah?
You can say that out loud.
I don't think that's something that they would appreciate you typing in on wikipedia.org.
I don't know how PG Wikipedia really is, but goddamn. That is an episode for the ages.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it turns out Kikuta is a government spy who is tasked to find the gold and kill Surumi after acquiring it. This adds another interesting wrinkle and faction to the dynamics of the series, as if we didn't have enough.
Yeah, seriously.
But it's not like, oh no, not another one we have to keep track of. It's like, oh, I wonder how that now affects the whole other parties in this. Like, how are they gonna, like, work together or against each other and everything? It's like such a neat setup for the next season again. It's like, oh god, I wonder where this is going. And then we get some great disguises by some of the gang. Kadokura and Ogata's disguises are top notch, especially. Damn it. The goddamn jokes in this show are just top tier. They make me laugh every time. It's so, I don't know. The mangaka has such a great sense of humor. It's so wacky, and it is super silly, of course, but I don't know. It makes the show only more endearing. And it doesn't take away from the really good dramatic and emotional moments of the show and thrilling moments. Like it should, for all intents and purposes, like in a show where you have masturbation dowsing, the emotional and dramatic parts shouldn't work, and the battles shouldn't be as exciting, but they are. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a miracle show. Like I said before in a previous review, it's like Golden Kamuy is a miracle show in more ways than one. Yeah, and we learn a bit more about Usami and Ogata. Like, they have a history, and Usami is angry with Ogata because, unlike him, Ogata is rebelling against his position as pawn in Surumi's game. And Usami is also jealous of anyone who gets Surumi's affection, so they butt heads. I mean, they've never really liked each other, but they had to work together, I guess. But yeah, they don't really, like, you learn that they really don't care for each other. We get like this flashback to the hospital bed scene and everything from an earlier time. But yeah, Ogata now has gotten used to shooting with his left hand and aiming with his left eye. Like, he's back to being a serious menace. Maybe not as good as he was before, but good enough. And yeah, super dangerous. So we can guess where that will lead. Really exciting. Then we kind of get, this is what I meant when this season kind of ends on a low-key note. Like, Asirpa says something interesting when they come across a felled forest. Like, the Ainu always leave a bit of what they take behind so it can grow back instead of taking it all, which is a sentiment we should probably start to adopt in real life.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Bit of an environmental message here, but I guess the show had that before, but not as outspoken, maybe. This was pretty on the nose, but I appreciated it. But yeah, then we get a pretty low-key ending when compared to the action blowouts at the end of season 2 and 3, but it doesn't matter, like we said. Asirpa and Sugimoto affirm their partnership. Shiraishi also earns more of their confidence and becomes more a part of the closed inner circle, I guess. And Asirpa determines for herself that her dad probably didn't kill the other Ainu to get the gold. We'll see if we get a definitive answer on that mystery and what it is that Asirpa decides to do with the gold to help the Ainu, because she hasn't said so yet. She just said she ends the season with saying, I know what I'm going to do with the gold now. And that's how the season ends. And we don't get clued in on that yet. We get a promise of the final anime chapter being in production. That's the final frame of this season. And personally, I am hyped as fuck.
I do wonder how they're going to compress it down, because this season was about 40-ish chapters. After this point, there's still like 70 chapters, man.
I'm pretty sure they might make it a 2-course show.
That could be. But
or they make it one season and then maybe end it on the movie or something. Who knows? We'll see. I mean, Golden Kamuy always had a pretty breakneck pacing. So I don't feel like they're beyond like going into hyperspeed mode. But also that might make us lose some of the cool small character bits here and there, and I don't want that.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, because I've seen too many other shows go too fast for their own good. And we've talked about it on here. The one that springs to mind in particular is Index 3, which was just a complete and utter disaster. Because I don't even know how many volumes of the LN they tried to do in that season, but it was clearly too much all at once.
I mean, if they keep around the same director and writers like they have even with the studio change, I'm pretty confident that they will pull it off in a good way, because so far they haven't disappointed us, and they gave every character and every, story beat the right amount of time we needed to make it shine. So for now, I want to stay optimistic here. I mean, everything might culminate in Sapporo. Maybe are still some parts where they travel to that, and maybe they cut some of that out, where there's maybe some unnecessary fat there. Who knows? We'll see. I would like to see everything from the manga and the anime, but maybe they already cut some stuff in the previous seasons and we didn't notice. I can see that being the case.
That could also be the case.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I remember, speaking of another show, Attack on Titan, when they were like, oh yeah, we are, kind of condensing and cutting some stuff out for the sake of pacing. And like a bunch of our friends who had read the manga were like, good. So, they made the right decision with that. So hopefully they'll do right with this too. One way or another, like you said, if it's split core, if it's a season and then a movie, all of that remains to be seen.
I mean, if it's possible, I would favor a 2-course season, because that means more episodes of Golden Kamuy.
Yes.
I would take I would take 24 episodes of Golden Kamuy over 12. Are you kidding me?
Oh, 100%.
I mean, if they have to put some filler in there, maybe give us the side stories of the two characters that dashed off to Russia and were set to have their own adventures, or we get some weird filler episodes with Kadokura and Kirawus, where they have go on like a silly detective adventure that doesn't really necessarily relate to the main plot. I don't give a shit. I don't mind seeing that. Like, do it. If you have to make, if this is the only way you can make a 2-course show happen, but then have enough time to put all the other stuff from the manga in there, then that's the way to go. I trust you, writers and directors. So we'll see where this goes. But yeah, great season. This fourth one. As usual, lots of funny and weird moments, wacky and cool characters, intense fights. In my opinion, Golden Kamuy remains entertaining as hell and definitely one of the best shows we've watched in recent years. And it's gonna make the picking the best of the season award this season not any easier.
No, it's not.
It is a really high-ranked contender here. John, where can people watch it?
Find it on, I believe, mainly your and my favorite, Crunchyroll, but it might be in other places as well. Give me a sec to fact check myself in real time. If I could spell the word Kamui. Yeah, you can watch it on Crunchyroll. It says here on Live Chart. You can also watch it on Funimation. It's the same service, whatever. Looks like it's on Amazon as well. And then, depending on where you live, there is one way or another to watch this. So I think we can say pretty readily without hesitation that Golden Kamuy continues to be awesome, and just watch it. Please just go watch it. It's really good.
And there's a wrap on the 146th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. Now the music in this podcast is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
If you can't find your paradise in heaven, you might just travel to hell to search for it.
And the skirt chaser, the yellow-haired one, he's not here. Oh, it's wonderful.